Hi, welcome to Paint Talk, the weekly show where I answer questions and just pretty much talk about oil painting. Today I wanted to talk about how much time you should be practicing oil painting. It's the new year, and I know a lot of people out there are probably starting oil paints for the first time. They probably always wanted to try oil paints, and they're going to say 2021 is the year. This is when I'm going to start oil painting. And some of you may have already started oil painting and you're like, this year I'm actually going to focus, I'm going to get better. I really want to try and paint better paintings. So I thought it'd be helpful to talk about how much time you should be practicing every day. And I know you're going to be going in with a lot of excitement. You're going to want to get going. You're going to want to be painting for hours and hours every single day. And that's fine. But the truth is if you're just starting, I would highly recommend only painting for an hour and a half tops a day. Now you're probably like, well, Chris, why are you saying that? There's the 10,000 hour rule. You're supposed to practice as much as possible. Yes. But if you're just starting something out and you say, all right, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to paint for 5 hours every day. I'm going to paint for 3 hours every day. Now you're putting in your mind that sitting down to oil paint is a thing that's going to take up 3 to 5 hours of your time. So later on, when it comes time for you to sit down and paint, and there's probably other things in your life you need to get done or do, you're going to be thinking do I have 3 to 5 hours to sit down and paint? And a lot of the times the answer is going to be no. And so you're not going to sit down and paint. Or any time that you feel like you can't sit down and paint for 3 or 5 hours, it's not worth it if I can't sit down for 3 to 5 hours. And I personally think that's not a great relationship to have with painting in terms of your time. I mean, if you want to sit down and paint for 3 to 5 hours, that's great. Go for it. I'm not going to stop anybody from painting more. I just want to let you know you can get a lot done in an hour, hour and a half. And I actually much rather you paint for an hour to an hour and a half, 5 days a week than say 3 to 5 hours, 1 day a week. Because what's going to happen is that you're going to naturally just keep painting for longer and longer, and your hour and a half sessions can go 2 hours, 3 hours, and it's going to become no big thing. But when you do only have time to sit down and paint for an hour, you're still going to do it because that's normal to you. Now, the painting you're actually watching right now was done in about 45 to 50 minutes. The whole thing is on my Patreon if you want to check it out. But even though it is a 6x8 small study that only took me 45 minutes, you can still learn a lot from it. I mean, I learned a lot from it. Anytime you sit down and paint, you're going to learn. Now, to go along with the time that you paint, I recommend choosing subjects and painting on size canvases that you can get done in 1 to 3 sittings. This way you're always fresh. I've talked a lot about getting reps and how important it is to get reps at completing a painting from start to finish, because every painting presents a different set of problems. And the more you can get through a painting from beginning to end, the more different sets of problems you're going to have practice with. If you're always painting really big paintings that take weeks and weeks, you're going to lose motivation at a certain point to keep going on it, which is going to probably get in the way of you sitting down and wanting to paint. Because if you're working on a big painting and it's not going well, you're going to look at it and be like, I want to sit down and paint, but I don't want to work on that. It's not going well, but I don't want to start something else without finishing that. And you're just not going to sit down and paint. Also, just the experience I've had interacting with my students on Patreon, it's amazing how much of them really like these shorter paintings. Because, the reality is people don't have hours and hours to sit down and paint. And that's fine. You can definitely improve sitting down for short periods of time, because I believe if you're sitting down for a short period of time, you're going to be willing to sit down and paint more often. Now, I know you're probably thinking oh, Chris, it takes me 20 minutes just to set up to paint or just to clean up. That is another thing that you can work on and get that time cut down as much as possible. I've actually made a video where I address that. I'll put a link to that above right here. But the main thing is setting yourself up material wise and painting space wise so you can jump in and just start painting. I'm not saying you need a big entire painting studio. You need just one small area where you have your stuff set up it's ready to go. There's certain things you can get to make it easier. You know, you can get a canvas pad, so you always got, you know, some canvas there ready to go. You can get a palette paper, so you don't have to worry about scraping and cleaning a palette. You can get brush dips, so you don't have to worry about taking the time to clean your brushes after every single time you paint. In terms of like what to paint, whenever you have free time, just, search online or your photos and, have like a catalog of stuff that that'd make a good painting, or that'd make a good painting. That way when you sit down to paint, you have something to choose from right away. And don't get so bogged down in exactly what you're painting. You should be more interested in how you're painting. Doesn't matter if it's a still life, a landscape, a portrait, the main thing is that you're sitting down and you're painting. Even if you're a person that likes painting big paintings, like I love painting really big paintings, and I do paint really big paintings. But I've definitely found that when I kind of stick to smaller, quicker paintings for a while, when I come back to a bigger painting, they're a lot easier because I've increased my knowledge and my skill set so much from doing all of these little studies and these practices. And I come to the big camp, it's like, all right, now I'm coming here with new skills. I feel more confident now, and the big painting is just going to go better. You can also use these little paintings as practices for a big painting. Like if you have an idea for a really big painting, and you can practice it in small little studies and figure stuff out, figure out the colors and the values, before you take the time and the money and the effort to put it onto a bigger canvas. There's always something to paint. There's just endless painters out there with video tutorials. You can do master copies. Just always find something to paint. So the main thing I want you to take away from this video is that sitting down to oil paint doesn't have to be some big, huge time commitment. So as you're starting the new year and you're figuring out how you're going to go about practicing oil painting, try and figure out a schedule and a time frame of painting as often as possible that you're going to be able to stick to. Be realistic with yourself. You're only going to be able to find 45 minutes to an hour a day to paint, then schedule that. That's fine. Trust me, it's going to be a lot easier to stick to and to build momentum. Say you sit down and paint 6 out of 7 days that week, you're going to feel good about yourself. Like, wow, I sat down and I painted pretty much every single day this week. And you're going to want to do that the next week, and you're going to want to keep doing that. But if you have it in your mind that when you sit down to oil paint, it has to take 3 or 5 hours, you might only sit down to paint once that week. And then you're going to be demoralized. You're like, man, I only painted 1 day this week. And you're like, what's the point? Why paint this week? And you're going to build bad momentum that way. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you want to check out some great short painting video tutorials, I got those on my Patreon page, linked in the description below. I got my Foundations of Oil Painting course coming out within the next week. If you don't want to miss out on when that is released and at a discounted price, sign up to the Paint Coach newsletter, also in the description below. If you want to see what I paint on a daily basis, you can follow me on Instagram at Forza43. I'm Chris Fornatero here telling you to go get painting.